Guys, morning. Wow, we're Friday already. How quickly has this week gone? Well, some days have gone a lot quicker than others. I hope you've all had a good week and we've survived another lockdown. So week 4, tick, done. Yeah, I hope you've had a good week. So this week I've been sharing lots of suggestions and tips on caring for your newborn or your baby, and today we are going to finish the week on winding burping baby. Lots of new mummies or new parents quite often, when I go in and support them, ask them for some techniques on winding their baby, because sometimes they find it really hard to bring baby's wind up. So I'm going to show you a few little methods that I use, and what I would say is there's no right or wrong way really to wind a baby, and every baby is really different. Some babies are really tricky at bringing up their burps, and others bring them up really well. So sometimes it's just a bit of trial and error, and I tend to, when I kind of like wind a baby, I tend to do several things to them. And when they're really quite sleepy, sometimes it's even harder to bring up their wind. So I'm going to show you now just a few little kind of like techniques, as I said, that you can try to bring baby's wind up. So breastfed babies, it is true that some breastfed babies, not all breastfed babies, may not be as windy or not have as much wind as bottle-fed babies. That being because they don't take in as much wind when they're on the breast to obviously a bottle-fed baby. But saying that, I do tend to find that even breastfed babies do have wind to bring up as well. So we're going to start with just a very kind of one that you probably know anyway. It is kind of more the sitting up, bringing up wind position. So I hope you can see. Okay, I'm just going to move the camera around a tiny bit. I've got baby on a cushion just so you can see. So when I have baby sitting up, you want to try and keep their backs as straight as possible because that will help bring up wind. And I tend to have my thumb and my forefinger just gently, definitely not strangling baby, just gently placed in a really comfortable position around their little necks. But again, I'm not gripping them in a vice grip, I'm just gripping them gently. And then I have my hand is on their chest, and my other fingers are underneath baby's arm. So that gives baby a really good supporting position. So you're kind of like in control of holding baby really comfortably. It might take a little bit of practice, because obviously I'm doing it on my doll, and little tiny babies are obviously a little bit more kind of scrunched up, so a bit trickier, but that is a really nice position. So you've got good support of baby, and you're controlling their head, really important. And you're able to kind of, gently maneuver baby into a good position. So I just tend to tilt them slightly forward so that they are leaning forward. And you can have something that you always need when you've got a newborn or a baby is loads of muslins. You can have a muslin just over their lap, because sometimes babies will spit up. That's really normal and really common, that they might spit up a little bit of milk while you're burping them. So I tend to, just as I said, lean them slightly forward, and I will pat in between their shoulder blades, just doing a nice little rhythm of patting. And then you can also gently kind of rub baby's back as well. So you can either do little circles, so you're kind of like circling across the top half of baby's back, or you can just gently massage up the wind, so almost like stroking up baby's back as well, which is sometimes a good one for bringing up baby's wind. And what I tend to do is a mix of those little kind of like techniques. So I'll start with some patting, and then I'll do a little bit of massaging, so stroking up baby's back, or doing little circular movements around baby's back. And just sitting them kind of like, as I said, leaning them slightly forward, sitting them upright. If you've got a breastfeeding pillow, they can be sitting on the breastfeeding pillow. If not, you can sit them on a pillow if you feel more comfortable, or they can just be sitting on your lap. So, you know, I just keep trying with that for a few minutes and see how baby goes. Then you can just move baby to over the shoulder, because again, obviously having your burp cloth, again, lifting baby up, placing them on your shoulder so that their chest is kind of like, you know, nicely on your shoulder. And again, their backs are nice and straight when they're in this position. And again, you know, you can have your hand on their little bottoms to support their bottom nicely. And again, you can do either your kind of stroking up baby's back, or again, just tapping baby kind of around about in between their shoulder blades. And keep going with that for a little while. So you can rotate. I find actually rotating positions is a really good way to try and bring baby's wind up. So then if they haven't brought it up, putting them back in the seated position and going back to kind of like doing winding there, it is absolutely fine. Sometimes what I do tend to find is some babies, as I said, bring up burps really well. So as soon as you sit them up, and you sit them in this position, and actually you just kind of straighten their back with your hand behind their back and a hand on their chest, sometimes they just automatically bring up a really nice burp. But other babies, you might have to work a little bit harder to kind of bring the wind up. And again, that's really normal. And sometimes they won't even bring a burp up. And again, that's absolutely fine. But you've given them, you know, a few minutes just to kind of digest the milk before they go back on the breast, or you restart kind of bottle feeding. Babies are very good at telling you that they've got wind. What you might find is if you put them back on the breast, or you go back to feed them with the bottle, they might be a bit squirmy. I quite often find when watching a baby breastfeed, if they've got wind, quite often the legs are kind of kicking around, and they might be kind of bobbing on and off the breast a bit more. So, and the same even really with the bottle. So I'd kind of stop and I'd try again. Sometimes if I find they've really not brought a burp up, but I can really see they're really windy, then I might just lay them down for a few minutes. So sometimes, you know yourself, if you go and change their nappy in between the feed and kind of they're laying down for a few minutes, then when you re-lift them up, put them back over the shoulder, quite often you find that, you know, with a little patting, that they suddenly just do a really nice burp. So actually laying them down in between your kind of winding session, if they're not bringing up a burp, and then starting again, can sometimes just make that little burp kind of like come up. Another thing, another little technique I have, now I hope you can see this, because actually it's not easy because I've got to lay baby down, but with this one you would only do this little kind of technique about half an hour after baby have fed, because I'm going to just gently kind of like lift their legs, and if they've got a full tummy, that will make them kind of like bring some of the milk up. So you want to kind of like leave this little technique. This is a technique that I use if I find baby still appears to have wind even after they finish the feed, and they're just not settling, they're not comfortable. So something called bicycle legs. So it's a little technique that I used, I learnt when I was doing infant massage, because it really kind of helps alleviate wind that's in the gut, because the wind will start to travel down into the gut, and quite often you'll see baby maybe has a slightly swollen tummy, their tummies distend a little bit. So normally that's how you can see, and you can just see that they're very squirmy, they're really uncomfortable. So again, you never force their legs when using these little kind of like techniques. So just very gently, we're going to just get baby's legs and just very gently do what we call a little bicycle movement. So it's lifting baby's legs just gently up towards their tummy, and you do a few of these, maybe about 6, kind of just lifting the legs up, and then gently again, you don't force the legs. If baby really doesn't want to go into this position, then don't force it, but you're just going to gently push baby's legs towards their tummy, and again just holding the legs there, just putting a little bit of pressure on the legs, and then gently stretch their legs out, just gently, and then go again with the little bicycle legs. So doing about 6 little bicycle movements, and then just holding the legs up to their tummy, putting a little bit of pressure on the legs. And actually, when you do this, if baby has got a lot of wind kind of down below, you will hear them popping away, pop, pop, pop. Lots of little farts coming out, which is really good. And then again, just straightening their legs out. Again, don't force it, don't pull them hard. You're just very gently kind of moving their legs. And then, as I say, just holding, pushing, putting a little bit more pressure on the legs. I don't know if any of you do yoga, but actually when you do certain positions in yoga, or when you're laying back on your back and you'll bring your legs up towards your stomach, you'll know yourself that you pass wind really easily. So it works for babies as well. And what you'll find is, once you'll actually see, if you keep doing that for quite a little while, a good 5 minutes or so, you'll actually see that actually then when you are kind of like lifting the legs up towards the tummy, that eventually the wind will kind of stop. They don't really have any more wind, and their tummies will go quite soft. So you'll know then that they've actually passed the wind that's really kind of making them feel really uncomfortable. So that's a really good one to try. But as I said, you wouldn't use that technique straight after they've fed or while they're feeding. And with burping, I always say, baby again is quite a good gauge of kind of when they're kind of ready to kind of do some burping. Quite often, if you're breastfeeding, it might be after they've had one breast, or what I tend to find is if they're getting really sleepy on the breast, it's a good idea to take them off the breast and do a little bit of burping with them, because actually that can stimulate them and wake them up a little bit, and then they're ready to kind of go back on, or take the other side. Or on the bottle, you're going to give them a number of pauses kind of during that feed, just to make sure that they've got opportunities to bring some wind up. Anyway, I hope you found that really useful, and I hope you have a really good weekend. I'll be back on Monday with some more tips and suggestions. So I had quite a number of mummies kind of message me this week with just little suggestions of things that they wanted some guidance on. So if you've got anything that you want some help and support on, then please message me. And I hope you have a really good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Bye for now.